Alright, today I wanted to talk about why the V6 is the worst engine. Now I'm talking from a mechanic standpoint, I'm not talking from a performance standpoint. Obviously V6s offer some compromise in power and gas mileage compared to the traditional V8s, but automotive manufacturers aren't liking to make V8s anymore, so we're probably going to be seeing nothing but 4 cylinders and 6 cylinders going forward. But this is why V6s are so terrible. I think almost all of them are front wheel drive. Maybe there's some rear wheel drive ones, and if there are rear wheel drive ones, this problem wouldn't be apparent. But they're mounted transversely, so instead of front to back with the drive shaft going out that way, they turn them sideways, and so you have 3 spark plug holes in the front, which are nice and easy to get to, but all of them have 3 in the back, which are a bear to get to because you've got stuff in the way. And it's not just spark plugs, obviously. Anything that you have to work on a V6, you're going to have 3 sides that are generally easy to get to and 3 that are much more difficult. And as terrible as this engine bay is and the layout of everything in here, there are far worse ones to where you can barely remove a spark plug. There's just no clearance or whatever. This one is a typical one. Have to remove the intake manifold just to even have access to the spark plugs. I mean, to me, that is just terrible design. And I know every manufacturer nowadays says everything is lifetime spark plugs, lifetime transmission fluid, lifetime this, lifetime that, but we all know there's no such thing. Anything that you call lifetime means you're going to be replacing something major later on. So if you don't do maintenance, spark plug changes, fluid changes, etc., you're going to have major problems eventually. Compare this with, say, a typical 4-cylinder engine. You're going to have 4 spark plugs, usually right up front, nice and easy. 4-cylinder engines are generally very easy to work on from a mechanic standpoint, even though they're oftentimes in smaller vehicles. Everything is usually right up here, and like if you watch Chris Fix work on his Hondas, for example, everything looks so easy because everything is right up here. You can take components off, get to them. There's not a lot of work involved as far as trying to wrestle around things and stuff, whereas you get an engine like this and you're constantly having to add extensions and elbows and other things to try to reach around things and do a lot of stuff blindly. Our beloved Crown Vics and other Panther cars have arguably the best and easiest to work on V8 of any modern vehicles. Obviously you get back in the really old vehicles, some of those, there's so much room in the engine bay you could almost put 2 engines in them. But as far as modern vehicles go, I have yet to find anything that's overly frustrating on this vehicle. I mean, even changing spark plugs, yeah, there's I think 2 that you have to have a swivel on, but I mean you think about everything they've got packed under this hood and very little room, and yet everything seems to be pretty easy to work on. Certainly from a DIY perspective. Again, I'm not a licensed mechanic, but of all the vehicles I work on, this one is always my favorite. It's just so much easier to do everything on it. The Taurus Interceptor is a great example of what I'm talking about for inconvenient locations of things. There's just not much room back there, and even if you removed the strut tower brace, I don't think you're getting a whole lot of clearance added by doing so. But everything's crammed in, and then you've got 3 that are right up front, kind of like a 4-cylinder, and then my guess is you probably have to remove the intake manifold to get to the back spark plugs. That's just a guess. I haven't researched it. I don't think this needs spark plugs yet, but my guess is they are underneath all of that. And to me, that's just a lot of work to have to remove an intake manifold just to change spark plugs, which are not lifetime, despite what a lot of these car manufacturers love to say. This is the 3.5 liter in a Nissan Maxima, and many have called it the greatest V6 ever made. I certainly don't necessarily argue that point. I think that Maximas put out a tremendous amount of power while giving you good gas mileage and reliability. Certainly, like this one that has the 5-speed automatic instead of the CVT, which the CVT is kind of problematic. But again, you got 3 plugs up here, and I'm guessing you have to remove the intake manifold and probably even that piping back there to change spark plugs. And then even getting in there to try to get to a belt, probably have to take the wheel off, maybe more. But everything just crammed in, and since it's turned what I would call sideways, it just makes it that much more difficult to work on. Whereas if this was a rear-wheel drive and they turn this, then you'd have 3 plugs on each side. It'd be real easy to get to everything. Just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.